The ladies are back to share some more insights all about metaphysical, ascension, cosmic energy, psychic tools, you name it. We're so excited to be here tonight. And tonight we are going to talk about discernment. How do you tap into your discernment? How do you strengthen your discernment? So if topics like this are of interest to you, go ahead and give us a like. You can share. We love to hear your comments. So that really supports our channel and helping to reach everybody. We really put this channel together for people who are on their different ascension paths, wherever they're at. And we like to talk about the different things that we've come across and we've learned for ourselves in our own journey and with the clients and students that we work with. So we hope these videos are helpful for you. And if they are, please like and share. So kicking off discernment, Peyton, how about we start with you tonight? What would you like to share as far as discernment for people?
Discernment. This is something that we talk about so often. And I really think it's one of the most important things on your spiritual and intuitive journey is developing discernment. But I guess first thoughts is to talk about, what is discernment? Because it's kind of a strange word. So people may not even know really what we're talking about. And the way I look at discernment is kind of like psychic or intuitive experience. When you first start your intuitive journey and opening up your abilities, it's like you're looking through a peephole. And your visions, whatever comes through to you, your downloads tend to be very simple and limited at first. And then as you start to develop these muscles, these intuitive muscles, which most of us have not used our entire life, you start to see a bigger picture than you did when you were first starting out. So when you were first starting out, maybe your first vision in class was a rose or the color purple. And that's so exciting and it's great because you know it's something new and you're getting information, but that might be all you get. But then as you start to practice more and work with your abilities more, you start to build up your muscle and you start to see beyond just the rose. And it's like, instead of looking through a peephole, you open your front door and you start to see that rose in the context with everything around it. You start to see the street behind it and the cars and, the trees that are next to the rose. And it's like your reading is getting deeper. It's getting more multi-level. And that to me is what discernment is. It's an advancement. It's learning to kind of look and read beyond the face value of what you're getting. And it kind of comes with experience. That's why I always think of discernment as experience, because discernment is really how you start to get more detailed in your readings and more accurate and more complex. And this is something that just builds over time. It's something that all of us work on probably our entire lives to get better at discernment. Because you learn to tap into deeper and deeper levels of information is how I think about it. And the more you do this, the more accurate your readings get, the more detailed they get, and just the more context you have for everything that kind of comes through to you. And that's something that you develop over time and practice, is building this discernment muscle. Because the other thing that it helps you do is help you see through things like deception energy and manipulation energy and things that you might have taken at face value when you were a beginner. You start to learn to kind of see through some of the trickster energies that are out there. But it's something you build over time. And so for me, there's basically two ways to develop this discernment. And one is through just doing this work through trial and error. You build discernment through experience. But the other way that you build it is through something that all three of us talk about all the time, which is the power of training and education and tools, is really a shortcut to developing discernment. Because you start to learn how to look deeper in your readings and your healings and tap into new, more subtle layers of information. And to me, that's what discernment is kind of all about. So it's experience.
I love that, Payne. And even your visual of the peephole, first you're kind of seeing it through the peephole and then you kind of expand it out. That's such a great visual, I think, for people to understand what you're sharing as far as discernment. How about you, Corey? What's discernment for you? What would you like to speak on in regards to
You
it?
know, it's so interesting, and I love your explanation of discernment, Peyton. Um, and you know, when I think of discernment, yes, you know, when you were talking about, you know, as we are advocates of, you know, getting educated, you know, and getting proper training in doing energy work, is what came to mind for me was, you know, when we start to learn the tools, the energy tools, and you know, you're doing one particular um, uh, exercise for a particular tool that you're learning, and and you get to know what that energy is. You know, you get to see it, you get to practice it, as opposed to free flying it and just not knowing really what it is, or if you're really seeing it or not seeing it, you know, if you're getting it correctly or not correctly. And so just you know, the getting training part, you are right, is the fast track to discernment, because when you get training and you're doing certain exercises with other people, or even if it's private, you know, you start to develop that muscle. And one of you know, the thing that I think of with discernment is, as we do build that muscle, right? And uh, be able to see more. I loved your analogy, Peyton. I really did. I'm like, wow. Uh, is that we get drawn to certain things, you know. Let's just say there's a group of people, and you know, somebody says, oh my gosh, you know, I went to go maybe like to do Reiki, you know, and you should really try it, you know. And this person was like so amazing, and everybody goes, oh, okay, you know. And you get the, you know, say there's 4 people, and you all get into class, and you know, 2 people are like, wow, you're right, gosh, this person is amazing, Reiki just feels so good. And then there's other people that go, hmm, no, I'm not seeing what they're seeing, I'm not getting what they're getting. And that is a form of discernment that I remember, even like Peyton and I were in a class at one point, and we were doing all these exorcists. We did some of that too, but not in this case. But we were doing these exercises, part of the energy work.
Freudian
We're
slip.
doing this
Freudian
exercise. Huh?
Freudian slip. We've just said that. We've all just said Freudian slip.
Oh, so not surprised. But we were doing this exercise in class. And our teacher was, you know, we went and looked at all these different gurus and people, and she had us say, you know, you know, who thought that energy was great. And some were like, yeah, and some people were like, ugh. And so when we get on this journey and we start to try different things, oftentimes we get we label it as like, oh, that person's no good, oh, I don't know, that person. But the discernment of it is, some people resonate with certain energy, and some people don't resonate with that same energy. And it's not good or bad. The teacher may not be, you know, it's not good or bad. It's just not what our soul signed up to learn in this lifetime, and maybe other lifetimes as well. So for me, discernment is feeling that energy and asking myself, is this something that resonates with me? Like, does this feel good? And does this resonate? No matter what anybody says. Yes, if you get recommendations, which is always the best, but going upon a path or learning a new modality, and just because somebody else says that it's wonderful and you don't think it is, or somebody else says it's horrible, try it anyways. Because the discernment is, whether your soul really signed up for it or not. And that was huge for me, that type of discernment, which led to, you know, gosh, I mean, all of us have had several experiences where we can feel an energy or we see an energy. And the discernment is, did you see that? Do you feel that? Did I feel that? That is another form of discernment. But as you get your tools and you grow that muscle, you learn to trust. Yeah, I saw that. Discerning. And then discerning, like, was it for us? Was it, you know, is that for me or is it not for me? So that's really what discernment is about me. And it's so interesting to me that when we talk about discernment, how different it is for all of us. But I have to say that discernment was probably top 3 most important things that I learned, because in growing up, you know, in generations, you know, brought up with certain beliefs. And so instead of cutting myself off from that, being open-minded to go, oh, just because my mom or my dad or my brother said that's so bad, or no, no, no. The discernment says, you know what, I'll be open-minded, I'll give it a try. And if it works, great. If I like it, great. Just, but not going as to what everybody else is liking or not liking. That was important for me, to be able to have that discernment and go, just because somebody else doesn't vibe with it, it doesn't mean they're bad or it's bad. It just means it's not for me. So that was a huge thing, discernment for me.
It's
But
a
it
big
also does apply for the readings. I have to say it does. So
Oh yeah. I love that, Corey. And, you know, I love when you share too, because you're always coming from such an experiential, and not that Peyton's not, the way you both describe things, Peyton's so, I feel like your terminology, she always like words it so well. I'm like, oh, she put that in such a great way. And then Corey, you're so great about just bringing your own personal experience into how you learn it. For me, when I think about discernment, it's very, you know, similar to both of you. I used to really bring in discernment with my clients in my previous business as a health coach. And it was really tapping into, because people would always ask me, what's the best foods to eat? What should I, you know, what should I do this? And my way of teaching people, it's like, you're not supposed to follow, kind of like what you're touching on, Corey, you're not supposed to follow just what somebody else says. It's like, what works for you? What's an alignment for you? And so when I think of discernment and how do you learn discernment, you know, of course, when I came to the school, I didn't realize I was looking for discernment, but it was really learning to teach myself more discernment, because I was in these unhealthy patterns of relationships. And how could I discern better as far as what type of people to let in my inner circle, right? As a healer, some of our biggest lessons to learn in discernment is who's supposed to be a client, who's supposed to be a friend, who's supposed to be a student, who's supposed to be a lover, because those lines can be very blurry and they are not supposed to blur. So learning discernment, I didn't realize, but coming into these tools was really what I was looking for. And as Peyton was talking about it, using the tools and practicing that in the different classes, it helped me develop my discernment. But I also pull in with people when they're first learning about energy, how do you actually start knowing what's in alignment, what's not? Because it's one thing to say something's in alignment, or, you know, you want it to be in alignment, but how do you know? And so I always bring it back to people for themselves. It's like, because energy, again, is really subtle. When you feel tight, constricted, heavy, I like to use the word crunchy, like, ugh. You know, anything that just feels off is usually not in alignment for you. So for example, if you're going after a job, or you're going after some kind of situation, or like Corey was saying, like some type of class or training or guru, you'll just kind of have a feeling of either heaviness or lightness. You know, for me, when something feels like it's in alignment, it feels light. I feel energized. I feel inspired. I just get all these different ideas clicking and possibilities. And it's just, you know, you kind of light up. Some people call it pinging, you know, or it's just like, like ping. So, you know, to me, that's like, oh, that's something that's in alignment. And that's kind of what I first taught clients that I used to work with, just on the health coaching aspects. Like, your body will tell you energy wise what works for it and what doesn't. And like Corey was saying, it's not that energy is good or bad, it's just what's in alignment for you. And that's where you get to discern, like, does this feel on or does it feel off? And then, you know, questions that we've used in previous videos is like, is this my energy? Is this other people's energy? When you bring in that curiosity, it really helps you fine tune that discernment. And that's where taking these classes, learning these tools, brings you in those situations where you can really redefine and ask those questions, look at energy that you wouldn't even think of looking at in different ways. And so it does help you open up your discernment. And I feel like now, after practicing these tools for several years, now it's almost like I can see a flash of energy, or I'll get, if I look at someone, I might get a flash of another person they might remind me of, and I'll kind of clear the energy. I'm like, why are they reminding me of this person? And sometimes it's kind of like that, you know, like you were saying, Peyton, some of that manipulator energy, or I'm like, oh, okay, that's why my intuition's bringing that reference to my frame of mind. So like Peyton was saying, it's a process to learn how your intuition, how your own sense of tapping into energy is showing you what's in alignment and what's not. But for me, it started out physical, and now it's like I'll get flashes of images along with the physical feelings, or sometimes it's just like a look in someone's eyes. You know, I've had experiences where I'm looking at someone and they're talking to me, I'm like, that's not really them in their highest alignment talking to me right now, you know, but they're, you know, they've, again, being in that manipulative energy. I'm like, wow, okay. They're trying to tell me this about myself, but I'm looking at their energy and they're not in their own grounded space. I'm like, okay. And so for what they were saying to me at the time, I used to let that really get my space and bother me. And now that I have that discernment, it's like, no, I know my energy. I know who I am. And I'm okay if you agree with it or don't agree with it. So discernment just really brings you into your power of, like you both were saying, just really trusting yourself and giving yourself that space to ask those questions, to look at energy in different ways, and just be curious about, what is this energy showing me? You know, is it alignment? Is it mine? Is it other people's? Yeah, so that's what I would add to discernment. How about for the two of you? You know, how did you start, Peyton, I'll start with you. How did you start discovering that your discernment was developing? How did you know?
Well, for me, it was something we actually talked about in an earlier video, which was, and Corey touched on this, which I think a big part of developing discernment is learning to trust what you get, even if everyone else in the room is getting something different. And so for me, it came with confidence. It came with, and nobody has this when they're first starting out with their intuitive abilities. Either you're looking around to see what your friend got, or you're kicking it into your brain to pick it apart. And so a big part for me of discernment was being confident in what I was receiving enough to, even in a room full of people, say, no, that's not what I got. And that's when I started getting so much more information, because I was trusting what spirit gave me was right for me, even if everyone else in the room got something different. And that's something that's really hard to do when you're a beginning intuitive student, because you're looking around you. You want to know if you got the answer right. I mean, that's, all of us have probably fallen into that trap. And it's not until you start standing in your own power and being like, I got what I got, which is right for me, even if it might not be the answer that everyone else got. Because when you're getting intuitive downloads, it's like looking at a painting that has every color, and you saw one color and someone else saw another color. Well, neither of you are wrong. You're getting what you needed to see. But that comes with confidence, and it comes a little bit with time, and it comes with learning to trust what you're getting, even if you look at some of these people like Corey was mentioning that might be big gurus in a particular area and are worshipped across the world. But maybe you start to look at their energy and you see that there's something else going on behind that shiny face. Well, that's listening to your intuition, and that's where discernment really starts to pay off big time, is because you start to see the real energy that's going on, or at least what you need to know about that situation. Might not be what everyone else needs to know. Everyone else may be happy with the pretty picture that's being shown them, but your intuition is showing you a different story. But you have to have the confidence to trust what you're getting. So to me, that's when I started developing confidence in my abilities enough to say, y'all all see red, I see purple. That's when I started to stand in my power. And that's when that muscle really started to pay off. But it takes a little time to get that confidence in what is coming through. So that's what happened with me.
Yeah.
How about you, Corey?
It makes me think, when I was, listening to both of you, is suddenly what popped in my head was it's coming from a place of judgment and moving into discernment. And discernment, like you said, Peyton, is a form of trust and the confidence in yourself and what you see. But I know, at least for me, I came from a place of judgment, because it's all I knew. Like, judgment was discernment. It was kind of like, that's how I was discerning, was through judgment. But by building that confidence and seeing things differently, just having that open mind and just being open to just seeing things differently. What you see is what you see. It moved from judgment into discernment. And I'd much rather be in discernment, quite honestly. The human condition, yes, sometimes does that judgment. But when you move into that place of discernment, it comes from a place of love. No judgment, no right or wrong, but just, yeah, that doesn't vibe with me. And that's okay. Which also, it also moves that fear away too. By just discerning, yes, no, maybe so. We'll see.
I love that, Corey. And I feel like for me, when I started, because I used to ask when I was developing my tools, instead of in a reading, ask like, oh, I'm seeing this, is that correct? Because I always felt like readers that did that were kind of vetting for information, and I didn't have trust in the reading. So it was kind of a mental thing. And not to say that readers that do that, you can't trust, but for me, in my mind, where I was super critical of readings and I didn't totally buy into the energy stuff in the beginning, I really tried when I saw readings, like Peyton was saying, it's like, let me just share what I see and, not try and judgment. I would ask for confirmation. I'd bring in the vibration of confirmation, like how can I confirm for myself that what I'm tapping into is correct? And in the readings, without me asking, the person would say, oh yeah, that thing, or they would just kind of share. I'm like, okay, so there's my confirmation that what I was sensing was correct. And then, to piggyback on what you're saying, Corey, it's always coming from a place of love. I feel like when my true discernment came in from my higher self, my guides, from source, it always came through the veil of love, where, like you're saying, Corey, in my normal everyday life, it probably came through a veil of judgment or whatever kind of filters were put in my space from, how we all grow up. We have different filters and how we view and see the world. So some of that wasn't even my energy. So when I was developing my discernment truly for my soul, I knew it because it was coming from a place of love. And I didn't feel the need to have people believe me, touching into that confidence. I didn't feel the need to have to get, validation from the person. I got it for myself. And then, sometimes it show up as like those, chills. Do you ever get chills as confirmation when you're doing a reading? I'm like, oh, to me, that's confirmation. It's like wings from the universe, right? So I'm like, ooh, I'm getting chills on that. That's a big energy that we're tapping into. And I feel like everybody has had that sense of like, the room temperature didn't change, but all of a sudden you just got these like, some people call them God bumps or, warm chills.
Just like right now, I've got them right now by you saying that. I just got the chill bump. I call them my angel bumps.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Little wings from the universe. Like, yep, you're on track. You're connecting me with that.
Good on ya.
Good on ya. Does anybody else want to add anything to discernment that you think would be helpful for anybody watching?
I think discernment is just like we were talking about it in one of our last videos, is being senior in your space. It comes back to, that confidence, that trust, that surrender to that you are getting what you need to get or what your client needs to get, even if it doesn't make sense to you or it's not the question you would ask. When you kind of turn it over, you become senior, which again is part of experience, part of having tools and education. But to me, that's when discernment starts to, you start to really see the benefits of it and how much you've grown.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
Absolutely.
I don't
really have anything to add to that. Do you, Corey?
I know. Hello?
Mic drop for Peyton.
Yeah.
Well, on that
My
note,
discernment
ladies,
says yes.
let's go around and my discernment says done. Let's go around and share where people can get a hold of you if they would like to connect with you further. Corey, we'll start with you this time. Where can people get a hold of you at?
Okay, you can get a hold of me at on Instagram, which is at Claircore Energy. I also have a website, which is Claircore, CLAIR, core.com. And you can also reach me at Intuitive Insights, where I am a teacher along with Yaela, and that's myintuition.net. And we have wonderful workshops and programs there. So that's where you can find me.
Lovely. Thanks, Corey. How about you, Peyton? If people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
You can find me at my website, which is my first name, Peyton Energetics, ENERGETICS.com. And on the website, you'll find all my classes and my mentorship, beginner and advanced. And you can also find me on social media, mainly on Instagram, where I post tons of energy-related videos every week. And that is at Peyton Energetics. And you can also find me same thing on Facebook, and YouTube is coming soon. So that's where I'll be.
Awesome. Thank you, Peyton. And lastly, you can find me, as Corey mentioned, another teacher for Intuitive Insights at myintuition.net. Tons of great teachers, classes, workshops, programs you can sign up for wherever you're at in your journey. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Yaela, Y-A-I-L-A. And from there, I have links to some free guided meditations. I have connections to a chakra course that I have, and then any scheduling one-on-one readings if you're interested in having one of those, or my website at yaelaweddle.com. So thank you so much for joining the ladies and I for All About Energy. Again, please like, share, comment, anything if you found this helpful, if you'd like more information, or if there's just anything you want to add to these videos or any further videos you'd like us to touch on for you. We hope these are very helpful, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.